Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we've watched the movie, we talk about it. It's really quite that simple. We'd originally intended, of course, on doing Arrival before this episode, so that we'd be building up to the new Denis Villeneuve film. Unfortunately, we had to take a week off. Tara had to go and do some work stuff that meant she couldn't record for a little bit. So we'll be doing Arrival next. There's like a dessert, I guess, to this. But of course, we're here today to talk about Dune, Part 1. The credit, the title screen definitely said Dune Part 1. So
that is correct.
So that's what we're here to talk about today, the new adaptation from the classic book. Of course, we did do the original David Lynch film about a month or so ago. So please do go back and check out that discussion, because I think this will make quite a nice companion to that. I feel like there's going to be a few times in this where I compare it to that film, just because... You know, I read a little bit of the book, but not a lot of it. A lot of my comparisons are going to be to the other movie. And I think there's some interesting stuff to talk about here. So we'll start spoiler free. Well, they're probably not for long though, because I feel like there's less of a reason to do it with something like this, which is an adaptation and a remake all in one. But we will do a little bit of impressions, and then we'll get into the meat of it and discuss it. And we'll warn you before we do that. So, yes. Dune, of course, if you're not familiar with it, is about a planet called Arrakis, which is a desert planet, and on that desert there is a valuable resource called the space, which, you know what, I'm actually getting one complaint out of the way here. They did not say the word space enough for me in this movie. After that last movie, I was like ready for them to talk about the space of life,
the space melange,
the space melange, the space this, space that, space girls. Right? They said space like twice. It was weird. I was like, God, need more space. Anyway, so but it's this resource, and then this one sort of empire is like kicked off of running the planet and mining the space, and replaced by the Atreides family, who are kind of more noble, and our main character is Paul Atreides, who's the son of the Duke. And it's his story, it's his kind of like hero's journey kind of thing. There's also natives in the planet called the Fremen, who are like, you know, kind of like the sand people, if you will. So that's your basic setup. I guess I'll just leave it there. But obviously the Harkonnens, who were kicked off the planet, aren't very happy about it, and they're also, probably going to cause a ruckus. There's my spoiler-free premise of Dune. There's a lot of other elements at play as well. There's like a voice thing that controls people. There's like a chosen one element. There's all these other things. We'll get into all that when we get into the meat of it. But Tara, how did you feel about Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 1?
Yes, I was very excited about this film, mostly because I think that Denis Villeneuve is a very exciting filmmaker, especially in sci-fi, and has really impressed me with, I think, all of his movies. I know you're hit or miss with them, but all of them have been pretty impressive, and some of them I like more than others. But I was really excited to get a new Denis Villeneuve film and a new epic sci-fi film, and they're perfect. They mesh together so well. I love this film. I saw it twice in the theaters. I saw it once again on Friday and then again this morning. And
for the record, it's Sunday. The movie came out on Friday and it's Sunday. Yeah. So just to put that in perspective, how quickly you saw this twice.
Yes, and I skipped the HBO. I went to the theater both times. And I tried to read the book beforehand. We skipped a week of recording because I had a work thing. So it cut my reading time. I didn't make it too far, unfortunately. I made it through book 1 of the 3 different sections of books in here. And it's most of the way through this film, but we'll talk about when we do the spoiler section. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot in here that is not in the film, but I think Villeneuve has done a really great job of making it more cinematic, much like the way Peter Jackson did with the Lord of the Rings films. Some things can be omitted and it's okay. And yeah, I think he nails it though. Like when when I was reading the book, like Paul Atreides will forever be Timothy Chalamet. I think the acting is really well done, the casting, and it's just such a beautiful film. Just I know it's not Deakins, but like it's I don't know who the cinematographer is, but it is Villeneuve's vision still, and there is a through line with his other sci-fi movies that is still seen here. He's just got the right eye for it. Very, very happy with the film. That's a bit long.
I still nothing compared to Tim. But usually when I ask Tim for his impressions, he goes on for like 5 minutes. Like he monologues and says things that clearly we're going to bring up later, but he just keeps going.
Yeah.
I let him roll with it. It's fine. So I'll call that a happy medium. Yeah, I wouldn't say. I mean, I wasn't excited as you were, but mainly because Villeneuve's work for me is very hit and miss. And his sci-fi work, specifically Blade Runner 2049, I am not as like all in on as other people are. I do think that film has problems. Admittedly, they're not all his fault. A lot of the problems come from the previous film that I also don't think is that great, and that's kind of why it kind of there's just stuff that exists from before. So I was very interested in this to see how this would work, because I like the David Lynch movie. It's a mess, but that's almost partly why I like it. It's kind of a fun mess and all that. And there's definitely when we spoke about that first movie, I did sort of raise concerns of like some of the plot elements of Dune that I just might not like. Like when it's done properly and it's been taken seriously, I might actually just not like these plot parts that much. Particularly the chosen one Messiah kind of thing that it's got going. So I was very curious to see how I'd feel about this. So I think objectively it's a better movie than the David Lynch. Well, I'll put it this way: it's a better first half of a movie than the David Lynch movie. Well, I say that because I think the hardest thing about reviewing this is the fact that it is half of a story for a story that was never designed to be split in two. And as a result, I'll say it, the ending is not like there's a very tacked on kind of, we had to turn a scene that's kind of into like a teaser for the next movie, and feels kind of forced to me, just because, well, where we're ending it, there's not really a big cliffhanger or a big climactic moment to say this is the conclusion of our movie. So we get this weird scene where Zendaya almost winks at the camera and says, "Come back for part 2." So more on that. But this absolutely establishes a lot of things that you need to understand for the story better than the David Lynch movie ever did.
Hell yes.
Right? So
it's so much easier to follow.
Right, so that is a fact. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think there's a lot of things in the background that I only kind of partially understood because I'd seen the other movie and because I'd read some of the book. I think that, so it's a very dense material that I think that it's one of those things where even if you like this movie, you're probably going to want to go read the book if you haven't, just to flesh out a lot of the smaller details and the names and things that are mentioned offhand that, in the movie, they couldn't explain everything. Some of it just had to be throwaway references.
Yes, but I'm so glad we don't have the inner dialogue anymore. Instead, actors are just showing instead of literally telling us this time.
Yes. Well, we spoke about that, how that was probably tacked on afterwards because nothing felt like, it was probably too hard to understand. So there's like, oh shit, get some narration going to explain things.
Put Virginia Madsen in.
So it is better. It's a beautiful film by and large. I don't necessarily think I like how everything looks better than the original. I think there's parts of the original film that I like better, and it's very case by case. They probably sort of, in terms of like the design of the world, it probably kind of evens out for me, where the spectacle and awe of the new one, because it can do these big things, is wonderful. But one of the things I talked about when we did the first movie is I talked about the trailer for this and how the scene with the hand in the box, look, it was just in a big open vast space. There's a lot of interiors in this film that are just big, empty, vast rooms, and I just think that's really boring from a design perspective.
Disagree.
You feel free to disagree, but I think it's like a really weird, like it just feels really fake to me. I don't know, and I get that part of the point is that okay, they're super rich and that they're showing the difference in wealth and all this wasted space and it's the exuberance and all the rest of it. I get it, but there's a point where it just kind of looks like a big fake empty space to me that no one would ever like.
Well, that room isn't empty; it's a library, and I think that's also kind of significant because they have books again. It's not like this is a future where mankind has not rejected technology, but rejected AI and has sort of gone back to, the way things used to be with the help of technology. They don't rely on things like we do as much. And they even mention, I think they mentioned in the movie that the humans used to rely on AI but that was a mistake.
I don't know if I noticed that, but back to the library though. I did notice there was bookshelves along the walls, but it didn't defeat the fact that it was a big giant circle with nothing outside of what's on the walls except this one chair and this one little table for the scene to like take place. It felt like there's something you'd put on like a stage if you're doing a stage play of something where we'll just have a backdrop and then the one chair that's needed for the scene. It feels really empty and kind of. It's something that a lot of like sci-fi does these days, which I don't like from a design perspective. But this is a design thing rather than like an effects thing or anything like that. Obviously, it's shot very well. When it's outside though, when it's doing outside stuff, it tends to look better than the original. In the sense that the vistas of the ships landing, whether it be on the first planet or Arrakis itself, or all that sort of stuff. All that stuff looks better. I will tell you this though, the Harkonnen planet looked way better than the original. This one is a generic, dark, steamy nothing. The original looked like they were living next to the Borg, like the Borg were their neighbours, and there was green everywhere, and there was pipes, and there was like.
Do you miss the gingers?
Greasy slime. Well, they're all completely bald now. They've switched the gingers for all completely bald people. Which do we see any female Harkonnens? Like, do we know what the women look like?
Yeah, there's like the assistant or whatever when they were bringing the Baron. They were trying to heal the Baron with the oil bath.
Was she bald?
Yes.
All right, they're all bald. They're all bald.
Not just bald, but like alopecia, like no hair.
Oh yeah, they're completely. I mean, in reality, completely shaven or possibly bald capped. But I suspect that this is a big enough movie. They insisted that everyone shave their heads if they want their parts.
I'm sure it wasn't a stretch for Batista to shave.
I mean, yeah, Batista's basically already there anyway, pretty much all the time. And Stellan Skarsgård probably could have gotten away with a bald cap because he was wearing a lot of extra stuff.
A lot of body makeup. Yeah.
So it didn't really matter for him. But yeah, so yes. So the design I'm kind of like 50-50 on, where there's some things I think look better because they appeal to me more than the original. But there's a lot of stuff in this looks much better as well on a spectacle level. That's absolutely true. What's funny to me about this though is that obviously, so it absolutely fleshes things out enough in the explanations where I could like it definitely sets up. One of the things that I appreciated in this is that it really gets across this shift of like one of them's been forced out of the planet, the other one's been put in. Why is that happening? And we'll talk about why and all that in spoilers, but they really emphasized that so that it was constantly being reaffirmed. It's like, okay, now we have this. This is a big deal that we are now moving into Arrakis and that we are the ones controlling the spice. I feel like in the original David Lynch film, it's like you barely even like it's like a throwaway mention in like one scene that the other guys were thrown out.
The Emperor hath decreed it, and then that's it.
Yeah. Whereas this one, they're constantly talking about how they've left everything in a state and everything's like in a really bad shape because they're trying to sabotage.
They're trying to sabotage. They don't want them to succeed, and
like that conflict feels much better established in this, for sure. That said, though,
and we don't see the Emperor in this one.
No,
he's
just like a faceless character. He's just this overseeing ruler that we don't ever get to. We might get to see him in part 2. I don't know.
I imagine so.
Possibly. What's interesting though, so as much as I think that a lot of the fleshing out early on is really good, I actually think the section of the movie, if you compare it to the David Lynch film, that gets the most stuff added, which is after about the 2/3 mark of this, right? It's, once we're maybe more in the desert, just with, so I'm not spoiling anything. That's where probably the most like significant, just big chunk of new things as compared to that movie, where there's a lot of stuff before they meet the Fremen that's extra compared to that movie. Almost all of that I was just bored by.
Really?
I thought like, and it's not, and this is not to say that I think that this should have been one movie, because I think that the original movie,
unless it's 6 hours long,
the original movie, from like after where this movie ends to the end of that movie was far too rushed and absolutely needed its own movie. But I do think a lot of the extra stuff in the back third of this one, I felt like maybe you could have cut a lot of this. I don't know if I needed.
Well, most
as
of
much
this stuff is taken directly from the book. Like, and this is the part that this is the part around where I finished, but I thought so much of that was much more fascinating because we get more of what Paul is going through, and Paul is kind of a thankless role to play because he's not really given a lot, but he has to carry the movie. And how do you do that if you're just a guy who's given everything and it's just being told a bunch of things that you're going to be great one day, not right now, but you will be. So like having all those extra moments where we see how the spice is like, what it's doing to him, and what all these prophecies are like weighing on him, and getting those moments with him and his mother, I think that's like the main conflict of this first film. And
I'm conflicted.
Why I appreciate it's there so much.
I think I'm conflicted on Paul a lot in this movie. I think I appreciate that they're trying to like get like the weight of like all these expectations from both his father to be the continuation of the bloodline, but also from his mother to be this chosen one, right? The Kwisatz Haderach, right?
And from the Fremen.
And from the Fremen even, who... Well, I mean, that's kind of an extension, because it kind of sounds like the myth that he's been built up as is kind of been intentionally planted amongst the Fremen by the...
Yeah, I mean, we were going to talk about that. Yeah. I don't know if you want to wait till spoilers and stuff. But...
Yeah, but just for the general point I want to make here, though, is like, I kind of appreciate that they're trying to make it interesting by like all these conflicting things of like, this is what you're supposed to be and how does that weigh on you. There is a certain point though where like one of the things that I disliked the most in that first film was the sort of like dreams of the future, and like I do think this handles like the first time he actually meets Zendaya in this, I think is a really good moment where the way it's shot and the way it's handled. But like there was a certain point in this film where I was getting sick of him dreaming of Zendaya, and I was getting sick of him dreaming of like what was to come. There was a point where I was just kind of like, whatever, like just like, and I think part of this is that it is a Messiah story. It's funny, I was just talking about how little King Arthur appeals to me, and there is some Arthurian kind of vibe to some of this.
Yeah,
it is there.
It's hard to talk about without like knowing the whole story, because we only have half of it.
Yes, that's
true. And there is more than you realize. I think it is going in a direction that you would prefer, much like because David Lynch's film totally ignores like the heavy elements of this in the book and just says, nope, he's the chosen one. But there is more to it. I mean, you were sort of touching on it with the Bene Gesserit, but
that doesn't surprise me. In fact, there is one thing about the dreams that I do like by the end, which I can't say without spoilers, but
yeah.
I'll point that out when we're talking about it. But I will say that I don't think this movie succeeded in making me give a shit about Paul. And I think in David Lynch's film, it was less of a problem because it was such a messy, like silly movie, and I was just like, God, let's raid the worms. Come on, and the music kicks in, and it's so majestic.
But, I mean, like Kyle MacLachlan is. I mean, like we like him because we like Kyle MacLachlan, but like.
He's
that Paul is whatever, and getting like someone who you know, it is like we get to see the pain, not just from like the box, but like of the weight of everything that's on him, and like really staying with Paul for pretty much the entirety of the film and his journey. Like I thought was like I did absolutely give a shit about where he's going and his decisions and what's happening to him. And plus, Timothée Chalamet is a like fantastic actor, and I felt like a lot of sympathy for him. Just like, I mean, I know it was like, oh, boo-hoo, you're like a prince or whatever, but like watching him interact with people who aren't even his own age because he has like nobody. He seems so isolated, and you know, I do feel a lot of emotion for him and his journey. And I mean, we can go into specific scenes, but like there are his performances, like there are little touches of details in it that really like got me emotionally. But and we'll have to wait to talk about why. But I do think that, especially if you're comparing it to the other film, like this is 100,000 times better.
I think the interesting thing you said though is that we liked Kelly MacLachlan because we like Kelly MacLachlan. That is true. It's not because his character in that film is given anything. I don't.
Yeah, I think it's a tough thing to write.
Let me finish my point. But I think the opposite is true with Timothée Chalamet though. I don't think he's inherently likable like Kelly MacLachlan is. I think the movie has to prove to me that he's not some pompous little shit, because that's the look he's got on his face the entire time.
I don't think so at all.
He comes across as like, I'm a serious actor and I'm going to be deadly serious in every scene I'm in, and I'm going to like grill at people, even though he's not literally grilling, but he's always like,
I certainly don't think so. I mean, we open with him on Caladan, which is just a planet of water and rain, and it's kind of, well, it looks like it's planet Scotland. There's even a bagpipe that shows up. So of course he's like broody. He doesn't come across, I think, I don't know, maybe you have a problem with like younger successful actors or something, but like he doesn't come across that way to me. Cause if you're comparing this to like Jared Leto in 2049, like, yeah, like that's an actor who comes off as acting too much and trying too hard. There's nothing about Chalamet's performance that comes off that way. I think it's very subtle and nuanced, you know, your words. I'm taking them for this. I think it is a tricky character to write, but because I sort of know the direction that the story is going, I guess maybe is why I still appreciate his performance and the way that his character is portrayed on this version of the film. Kyle MacLachlan, like if you watched Dune when it first came out, you're like, hey, who's this guy? Like you wouldn't have liked Paul. You probably wouldn't have liked Kyle MacLachlan, but you've watched Twin Peaks, and so you like him. I've watched Sex and the City, so I like Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah, well, the comparison to Kelly MacLachlan is just because it's an obvious one to make. It's not because I'm not trying to say that he's better in the role or anything like that. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm saying that this character inherently, I think, which you've also said, is a tough one to crack, because there is nothing really that likable or engaging about him on his own. He's kind of the plot device for the plot to revolve around. And I know that's a weird thing to say, because isn't that every protagonist? But he kind of is, in the sense that we are dealing with kind of a typical Messiah kind of chosen one journey, right? That's what this story is. And sometimes when you have a story like this, you have a character in the center who's kind of dull and kind of blank. And one of the things that I complained about in the original film is that like there's like 2 or 3 characters around Paul who have moments to show that they're kind of nice people, but he never gets that himself. This movie tries to do it a little bit. There's a couple of moments where he runs up and hugs people, and it shows that he's like, he cares about what's his face, Aquaman,
Duncan Idaho.
Is that Aquaman?
Yes.
Right, Duncan Idaho. Right, he cares about him. You know, he cares about other people. Like they have these little moments where he shows a bit more humanity, or or when he banters with Josh Brolin, for example, when he's coming into like his first time at the table with all the grown-ups having their meeting. Like there's little moments that they try to give him a little bit of a spark, which is nice. But he is very kind of moody all the time, and this is less of a. I think you took to heart me complaining about Timothée Chalamet a little bit too much. I was kind of being a little bit hyperbolic about him because I don't necessarily think it's his fault. I think this character inherently is kind of bland, and the way they have chosen to tackle it from a script writing perspective is to have this character who is dealing with all this weight, and that is potentially quite interesting. But I don't know if there's enough here to make me actually care about Paul yet. And I say yet because I do think that there is a wrench that's thrown into the dream stuff by the end of the movie that I do think is a bit more interesting. But he still came across to me as a little bit of a blank slate for a lot of the film. I never really found him that interesting. Actually, Joe, one thing the movie did like 3 or 4 times that really annoyed me, and this is not a Paul thing. This was mainly the Duke, although at least once it was Jessica. His wife. Oh, not his wife. Sorry. The point is they're not married actually.
Concubine.
His concubine, yes. But you know, the lover, right? Whatever, right? There's like 3 or 4 scenes to show that they are like understanding, like maybe ruler's not the right word, but you know, heads of state or whatever. And it's the exact same thing every time. Where someone who's a Fremen or likewise outside of the Atreides like normal line, who comes up to them and immediately all security all go to pull out the swords, and he goes, no, wait, hold, I'll allow it, let them speak to me. That happens 3 times in this movie in 3 different scenes, and by the 3rd time when they're meeting the woman who's helping them learn how to use the suits, and they do the same thing where she goes into like you know like fix the suit, and they all, you know, and Josh Brolin's like, oh, I'll get my Infinity Gauntlet, I'll punch you, and he's like, no, let her move, she has my approval. I kind of rolled my eyes. Okay, all right, how many more times can we show that they are kind and understanding potential new leaders of this world? They're not like the Harkonnens. They're not these tyrants who just want to hunt them down and take their resources. You know, because that's kind of a big part of the movie is that Duke Atreides actually wants to form an alliance. He wants to form a partnership. He wants to see form something new going forward. That's a big theme of the movie, and we'll get into that. But the 3rd time it happened, I was like, all right, I get it. Right, he's decent people. Okay. you can't use the same trick multiple times. You can show me in different ways. Okay, he's good.
I guess that's a thing you can complain about, but like it doesn't bother me because I mean he's the Duke, he's the leader of this world. You can't just walk up to him, and they did it. People kept doing it because they felt comfort, or they felt that they were comfortable with him already, and they're like, whoa, hold on, you're still like a stranger walking up to a Duke.
I think part of it is just because I don't like these types of characters. I guess this is why it kind of started to annoy me after a bit. As you know, the royal family kind of thing. I don't know, like that's why I don't like fantasy. I hate it. I hate this type of stuff.
Don't think of it as a fantasy. Think of it as a sci-fi film. It takes place in the year 10,151.
That's true. It specifies the year at the start of the movie. Yes, I did notice that. I mean, I couldn't have told you what year it was. Yeah, so maybe that's because
I saw it this morning.
Yeah,
I think that's the right year. I might be off.
It was 10,000 something. It was in the ballpark.
Early 10,000s. Yeah.
No, I know. Like that one's a bit more nitpicky. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that's a huge deal. I think it's a little bit repetitive, right? So I felt the pacing a bit when they did that again. I do think my general apprehension towards Paul as a character is a bit of a problem though, because it doesn't. It means it's hard to like buy into the overall story of the film. Because where I think the film excels is the feeling of the world and the feeling of the danger of this planet and the overall majesty of everything taking place. That stuff is all pretty great, and it feels really big and epic, and it feels all these things. So it does, bizarrely, it does come down a little bit, kind of similar to Blade Runner, where the technical qualities are basically flawless. Right, you've got wonderful visuals, you've got a great sound mix and score. Like I thought the 5.1 sound in this was especially well arranged and mixed. I was hearing a lot of music like shift from the front to the back, like throughout the film, that really stuck out to me. Yeah.
Hans Zimmer, we got Hans Zimmer for it.
Zimmer.
He
yeah.
gave up Tenet to do Dune.
He wanted to do, you know what? He wanted to throw some bagpipes in something he's never had a reason to before. So, yeah. I think they actually shot the stuff that you were saying, Scotland. I think they actually shot some of that stuff in Wales, if I'm right. Like that stuff. The First Planet. I don't know what it is about like seaside towns in Wales and Ireland, but for some reason sci-fi movies love to use them as planets. This is another planet.
They don't look like anything in America. That's why.
Now does Iceland. I'm sure Iceland would look good as a planet.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But yes. So I think it's a good movie. I'm not in love with it though. Which is,
do you think maybe your rating for it or how you feel about it will go up if you like the second film?
Yeah, possibly. I think the end of the story could greatly affect how I feel about this. I still think the last like half hour, 40 minutes of this feels a bit of a slog though. So I think that makes
it definitely slows down. I wouldn't say it's a slog. I still enjoy every second, every frame of the film.
But from a pacing perspective though, if you think of the overall story, like it's slowing down because it's the middle of the story. So it's weird that,
there are some action scenes and we get a big reveal, which was fun to have.
But it's weird as a movie though, because you're sort of like ramping up to like the end of Act 2 and then it slows down.
Right. But it was just like, oh, come on. It was just an appetizer. Where's my entree?
Yeah. The ending is very unfulfilling. Like when I realized it was cutting to the credits, you can sort of see it coming because, like I say, it feels like a very kind of almost too wink wink, like, oh, this is in our future. Come back for part 2, everyone.
Yes, come see this in the theater so that we can have part 2. Not just part 2, but parts 2 through 12.
Well, I believe the Paul story is only in the first 2 books, and apparently Villeneuve has indicated that that's all he wants to do as a trilogy. So it'd be the first book split into 2, and then the third book, apparently, Messiah, is short enough to put in the one movie.
I think that's the second book, and then Children is the third one.
Which was
its own show.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to do that though. He just wants to do the first 2 split into 3 movies.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's the whole Paul story apparently. So
when you said part 3, I was thinking the third book, not the third film.
No, third movie would be the second book.
Okay.
And that's
okay. If we just get the Paul story and then we get the miniseries or the series on HBO, that's all right with me too. Whatever. I want this to be his Avatar. I want him to make 12 of them, but whatever he wants to do.
I feel bad that I'm not as enthusiastic because I don't want 12 of these. I'll see part 2.
You don't know if you want 12 yet.
I feel like you're holding it up. I actually kind of hate saying that I like it and I think it's good, but I don't love it. Like I don't feel passionate about it because Tara predicted after she saw it on Friday that's exactly how I'd feel, and I hate that she nailed it like exactly. It's funny. I feel like a lot of like every time Villeneuve doesn't hit for me, and I wouldn't describe this as a miss. This is kind of like in between where, like, I need to see the rest of it. I need to see how he handles the rest of the story. What's funny though is that here it's less to do with his choices and more to do with just the source material in a lot of ways. I think, in a weird way, the goofiness of that first movie, because everything's so condensed and it is at a certain point it's just kind of a silly mess, so you just kind of like you're along for the ride and just
it feels like a heavy metal cartoon, that one.
Yeah,
or like a fever dream.
Because this is taking it seriously and it's going slowly, and it's pacing all these things out, which in theory is a good thing, but if I'm not into the actual core story concepts at their core value, then they don't get disguised with the cartooniness of the first movie. They're just there as the raw concepts,
Yeah, there's nothing really crazy in this film.
No,
like even the Harkonnens, although they are successfully disgusting, and there's an element in there that is introduced where they're pretty. I would say just evil. They have like this experiment on humans thing going on that I think is introduced that is like, ooh, what else are they doing behind that we're not seeing? That was really intriguing and gross, but they're not like covered in boils or not like the Lynch version of the Harkonnens.
So, yeah. I think Dune just needs a more interesting main character for me. I think that's fundamentally what I need from it.
Okay.
I need someone more interesting. But then again, maybe you're right. Maybe the second half of the story and what it adds to make it more complex will make it all right for me.
I mean, to be fair, I haven't finished the story, so I don't really know for sure. But like, there's a lot of details in here that aren't in the film for obvious reasons, and they are setting up things that it, makes you go, oh, this isn't what it seems to be.
Okay. Well, we'll give the spoiler warning then, so we can just talk about what's in the movie with the shackles off. So full spoilers for Dune Part 1 from this point on. That said, though, we will try and not talk about like what might be in Part 2, either mostly from the first movie, because you've not finished the book and I've not read the book, so
No
so
problem.
but yeah, but they do tease the worm riding in this. We even get to see it a little tiny bit at the end, like in the distance. But I
predicted that this movie would end with the worm riding, and I was sort of right.
So I don't know if I want to give you it though, because I think we both meant Paul. We both meant Paul like jumping up and riding the worm. I almost hate that they showed that little glimpse at the end, because I think the tease of the other character, the woman who like pulls out the hooks and she's going to do it but then gets stabbed in the back, I thought, oh, that was like actually a really good little tease for the worm because she was going to do it.
I thought it was going to happen. Actually, I really love that in that scene, like when you see her get stabbed, all you see is water come out. You don't see the blood because all the moisture, her suit's been compromised. I thought that was a really cool touch.
Yeah, that's interesting. So there's little things that I do think are improvements to the first one. One of the things that I said that I loved but wasn't used enough in the first movie was their kind of goofy looking but kind of fun shields, like sort of thing they had going. And I was like, they only really use it after they introduce it in the training scene. They only really use it in one scene the whole movie. Here though, every ship has that, and you see it kind of like, because basically it'll flash blue when it's hit if it's blocked something, but it'll flash red if something goes through.
It's penetrating.
Yeah. And like we see it in multiple fights. We see the
people
Baron
just do it instinctively to like protect themselves, just because they think maybe something might be dangerous around them.
Yeah, Baron activates it at one point. Obviously, the Duke activates it. The ships have it. Lots of fighters have it. I think I do have still one complaint about it though. Is that
it's not boxy enough?
No. I mean, I actually thought it looked alright. I thought they would go more slick with it, so I appreciated it still had kind of like there was still like a sort of vibration kind of effect to it, which I appreciated. Even though I do love how goofy those boxes looked in the first movie. No, my complaint is actually that they set it up and they had everyone using it, but I didn't feel like the fight scenes were choreographed in a way to actually feel different because of the rules. Because the rules of it are like, if you try and stab someone or shoot someone with the shield, it won't go through because it's too quick. But if you push a blade in slowly, or you have a bullet that's designed to slow down before it goes in, it'll pass through. Like, it's all about speed. And I felt like a lot of the fight scene, when Jason Momoa is like just fighting with multiple dudes, I didn't feel like it was doing anything. I felt like it was just like a regular fight scene. It just happened to be flashing red as he was doing it. I
agree with you, actually, because I looked for it in the second time, especially when I was watching it. Like, is he just pushing it slowly, like once he's there? So because he's so strong, he's able to like push through it. Like, they did cast somebody who is very muscular. So maybe that's what they're implying. I do love, though, in the ships, when like these really slow bombs are coming down, you're like, what are those? And then you realize they're bombs because they're penetrating the shields, because they're like balloons that are just falling into it.
That's
slowly.
The fun of it, is that it's a really simple rule that it's very easy to understand. And that's what's really good in a movie, in a sci-fi movie or a horror movie, when you have a simple rule that your brain just gets immediately, because it's like, okay, how can they use this to make like something?
And I like the use of the color too when it turns red.
And in that case, you just pointed out, like, it's like that's different because they have to drop the bomb slowly. So you have this slightly different visual, and it gives you this almost suspense of them dropping because it's kind of a sneak attack, or and part of the fun of this potential in the fight scenes is like, okay, they're going to have to do this thing where they're going to have to slow down. Like, they're going to have to be sneaky and quick until they get to try and land the blow that actually is going to hit them, and then slow down with that hand. I just didn't feel like the choreography actually did anything different. It was just, no, it's just a fight scene. It's just...
Yeah, in the fight scenes, I agree. We do watch like a training scene with Brolin and Chalamet and Paul together. So they have that fight scene where we do see that, like, yeah, if you're close enough, you could probably just, move the blade slower and be able to penetrate the shield. So maybe that because they're fighting so close, they're able to do that, but it's not really... I do agree that the choreography isn't really like portraying it enough to where I'm like following. Like, is the rule just broken? Or
yeah, even if there's technically...
I'm like trying to justify it while I'm watching it rather than the movie showing it to me.
But that's the problem, though. If you're having to justify it, then the point of the matter is that it's not having an effect on how the fight scene is portrayed. So, okay, maybe you could explain it and say, technically it's working because of this, or that. But it doesn't matter. The point is that you're not seeing anything different in how it plays out because of the technology or the rule. You're just seeing a fight scene that's normal. Right. So I do love... I also love the use of it in the scene where the Duke gets the little mosquito-like thing to the back, because it's not penetrating the shield. So my cat's going crazy. So it's like it's stuck in the back, and it's an awkward spot that he can't reach, and you're like waiting for him to try to get it, and it's slowly like getting closer and closer before. I thought that was a really tense, effective use of that rule. Yeah. It was a similar thing when someone tries to assassinate Paul in his bedroom. He doesn't have a shield. Yeah, the little drone thing. Yeah, where it's just kind of slowly coming up to him, which tells me that they don't know if they've got a shield or not, so they just do it anyway. There's like, and then they find like the drone operator. He's like hidden in a wall because they have to be close by. They don't have long range on these things. Right. Interesting stuff. No, that stuff's... So I appreciate the greater use of the shield, but I didn't think it was actually utilised in an interesting way in the fight scenes itself. So... Yeah, with the exception of like seeing the obvious, like the bombs and stuff, I think was really cool. Like that's an obvious use of their technology to try to change and adapt to the new technology that's introduced in the film. I think the other benefit it had is at one point when Jason Momoa, like after the big attack where he grabs I'll call it a helicopter, but I mean it's more of like a dragonfly looking thing. Yeah, but he grabs. They're called a thopter. I thought like chopper with a th. Get to the thopper. But he jumps in the thopper and like he gets hit with a bomb that's not going slow though, so he just kind of flashes blue, but it's still like an impact, so it still knocks him off to the side. So it created this thing where you get this sort of clearly recognizable visual of things happening to them when they're trying to dodge things or get hit by things, and are they okay or not. It's almost a little bit video gamey because if you think of a video game, you usually have these color indicators to show you if something's happened. Your health bar. Yeah. But it was it's an interesting the scene where I did think of a video game was the use of the spice crawler thing to pick up, and then it pans out and then we see the drone come in and like try to remove the crawler because the sandworm's coming. That scene to me was like, I could play this video game. Like you have to try to collect all the spice you can before the worms arrive, and then like coordinate all your drones to pick up the machine before it gets swallowed up. Oh, that'd be a fun game. You want the Dune, like I was thinking like what's the StarCraft version of this? Yeah. Okay. I definitely would play that. Yeah. So I mean, obviously mentioned the visuals and stuff. I mean, I talk about Paul. So the thing that I liked about after a while, I was starting to like lose interest in the Dreams of the Future stuff with Paul. The one thing I did like though is that we get proof by the end that they're not necessarily true. That there's like there's at the very least a divergent path that could lead away from what the dreams are, because one of the dreams that he has is befriending this Fremen who in the dream is saying, you're going to, lead us and be great, do great things, or something to that effect. I can't remember the exact lines, but it was very much like
he seemed to be some sort of a mentor to him.
Mentor and kind of in a support of him, like almost like if he is a messiah, this is like one of his first disciples kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then when we actually get to the Fremen at the end of the movie, this guy's like, no, I don't trust these outsiders. And you're trying to help them, Javier Bardem. So I invoke this dual thing that we have, and Paul's like, okay, I guess I'm fighting you then. And I was
it's a duel to the death, yeah.
Yeah, but I was, but even at this point, I've been thinking, okay, somehow they're not going to.
He's going to Kirk his way out of this, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's the way to put it. I thought somehow they're going to get to a point where this doesn't end in death, and they're going to, he's going to earn his respect or something.
Yeah.
But instead, no, he has to kill him, and it's kind of this stark realization that those dreams aren't for sure. They aren't this guaranteed prophecy or anything like that. Even though he has dreamed of this person, he has dreamed of Zendaya, and he's thought of these things, but this was it was like, okay, this instantly made every single time he dreamt more interesting because one of them turned out to be completely false.
Well, we know that the spice it's a hallucinogenic, so it can cause visions, and his visions, although these people really exist, we don't exactly know. We've been told that they're prophecies. But we've also been told that the prophecy is sort of made up, so we don't really know what to trust in them. Yeah, and especially by the end. The end really pulls the rug out from you. Oh, I guess we just can't trust the prophecies now.
Yeah, it's kind of a mass hallucination brought on by it's almost like
by eugenics.
By eugenics. But I was going to say more just in the sense of the idea that religion itself is this construct that's made up, and this prophecy and everything about the chosen one and all that is all nonsense. But because they've all been breathing in space, they've been told all this time. They get to this point where they thoroughly believe this. There's some interesting dynamics there. Although it is worth mentioning that Paul did dream of at least Zendaya before he ever came to Arrakis. So some of them are spaceless visions. Right.
And he did dream of the guy that he kills before he met him.
But not the conversation where they were friends and stuff, though, right? That was later in the movie.
That was later. That was as he was approaching the Fremen. When they were crossing the desert.
They'd already spent a night in the desert by that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So not spice-induced. But we don't really know what the effect of the spice is. It could be playing with... Because I think the reason the Bene Gesserits want to have the Kwisatz Haderach is that his mind can be unlocked with the assistance of drugs in order to travel through time and space. So I think maybe this could be a future thing reaching back to him because he is in the spice and eventually.
So yes, him sending himself messages back in time.
Right. Kind of a thing. I don't know for sure. But that's
either consciously or subconsciously, or may not even be intentional.
That's my speculation, anyway. Won't be the first Villeneuve sci-fi film to sort of tap into that.
I would not know. That one detail at the end made it more interesting because up until that point I was just kind of because I mean that first movie definitely was just he is the chosen one. Oh look, he's become the chosen one. Oh, he's won. There we go.
And everybody says he's the chosen one. Yay!
We're done.
Movie over.
There was no
here's some worms riding.
No real obstacle in his path. Once things got going. So
the Harkonnen definitely feel way more of a threat in this one.
Well, they actually keep chasing. I mean, that's part of what is different from the first movies. That there's a whole section where they know they're the mother and son are alive, and they're chasing after them in the desert. And it's not until they chase them into a storm because Jason Momoa's character in the first movie, he died earlier. He died back at the attack on the palace or whatever you call it. Whereas here he actually survives and sort of connects them with one of the Fremen, who also dies, that woman, but. His big sacrifice comes because I was like, oh, is he going to survive till the second part? Is he meant to be a main character? And he's like, no, he dies just a little bit later. It's still a sacrifice. It's just a little bit later. But he goes out by taking on it's not the Harkonnens. It's the Emperor's super special army that he sent in with them.
But the Harkonnens, we know why they're working with them now because it's established so much better in this film, where it's like they've been here for 80 years and they've had the most valuable product in the universe that everyone wants. So the Harkonnens are insanely rich, even more rich than the Emperor. So they can just buy whatever they want, like an army now, like the best army.
Yeah, and of course the Empress is all a ruse. Like this whole giving the Atreides family Arrakis is just so they can be attacked. It's all just a deal he's made with Harkonnen.
The Emperor is afraid of the Atreides family.
Yeah, because he sees them as possible change, and there's a lot of like Dune itself. Like it was written right in the middle of the Cold War, where the entire planet was like about these two sides, and this is about two families. And then obviously all of the allusions to the Middle East and oil.
Oil, yeah.
Yeah, with the spice. There's a lot of like real world things you can start to kind of like, not necessarily one to one, but certainly see where a lot of the inspiration and themes are coming from.
Right.
And that's
even
in
in the
well.
book, like they use the word jihad all the time.
They notably did not do that in the movie. I think that maybe would put on the
a little bit too much.
Too much, yeah, a little bit too much. But you still felt the influence, though. You still felt the influence of some of the words that were still being used. You still you felt the influence, and I think even the planet of Arrakis is somewhat inspired by the look of the deserts in the Middle East. Like that's kind of part of the idea.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff there, and the idea that our heroes, like the one, and I like that this movie more so than the first movie really gets this across, is that the Duke, wants to gain the trust of the Fremen, not to double cross them, but to actually form like a happy alliance that can last forever. Like actually improve things for everyone.
Right.
Because if that happens, then the Harkonnens in their way. But of course, this is the old ways, like fighting back because they don't want to be made redundant. They want to stay in power. They want to, and that goes for both the Harkonnens and the Emperor. Everything both of them are doing is about being the ones on top. I mean, Harkonnen's whole thing is that he wants to just end the Atreides bloodline. He wants it done.
Yeah.
So.
And we sort of find out in this film too that the Bene Gesserits are actually the ones who are in control of everything, because they've been planting the seed of the prophecy for centuries, and doing all this eugenics to try to create somebody who can represent the prophecy in order to use as needed.
Yeah.
And that is,
but dare I?
I think there's a scene between Paul and his mother and Jessica about like, the Bene Gesserits are not exactly what you think. Like, yeah, we are like the right hand of all the emperor and all the powerful people, but our main deal is politics. Like they're the ones who are actually in control of things.
They're manipulating things from behind,
and they have a serious long game that they're playing.
Well, that's the thing. Like I don't like they want Paul alive. They see value in his existence. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure him becoming this chosen one that actually achieves what the prophecies, what the Fremen think he's going to achieve, is not actually their end game necessarily.
Right. The Lady Jessica did not have permission to give birth to a son. She was supposed to give birth to a daughter because they've been playing this eugenics thing. They're like, no, it's not time. It's not the right time to have a son. You're supposed to give us a Bene Gesserit daughter. But she says she's done it for love, because she loves the Duke, and he wanted a son in the heir.
That's one of those things where if that was like emphasized a little bit more, the idea that Paul is different from what the Bene Gesserit wanted the Haderach to be, because he did come from love and not just a planned thing. Like that's the ingredient. And it's a little bit sappy, I know, but
I still don't even know if it's true. Like I don't know if Jessica is being completely honest.
Okay, let's just assume it is true for the point I want to make here. Is that
sure.
If he did come from love, as sappy as it may be, if that's the ingredient that meant that he wasn't just going to go along with their programming and do exactly what they'd been planning for all this time. But this story clearly is about control. It's about different big powers who are trying to like gain control, about who's right and wrong in that, and there's a lot of these themes that are in here, and it's very much there. You can see why the book had an impact. You can see why it's lasted, and it's still relevant. If arguably, it's even more relevant in modern times than it was
it's
in the
very
60s.
anti-imperial, anti-religion. In a way, it's like the anti-hero's journey.
Yeah.
Because it's all phony.
In a lot of ways. But the funny thing is that Paul's character journey, from at least the version I've experienced, is so kind of bland, and we've seen so many chosen ones throughout, nerd culture and films and media over the last 50 years that it's I guess I'll put it this way: it's lacking a bit of space. Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
It's lacking some space.
Well, I mean, so many things have been influenced by Frank Herbert's books. So
No, that's true.
How much it could just be suffering that we've had so many Chosen One stories that we're burnt out on them. So you have to do something new, and maybe Villeneuve's first chapter here isn't new enough for you.
That's entirely. I mean, that is an unfortunate position to be in. Apparently, John Carter influenced so much science fiction. But, when that John Carter movie came out, it looked the blandest thing that I'd ever seen. I didn't
hate it. I kind of liked it. I don't understand what all the hate was about.
I'll be honest. I'm not sure. I think I saw it, but I'm not sure.
Well, we'll review it one day. It's probably like a 5, but I don't think it would be a trash 5. It wasn't the worst thing
ever, but it was thoroughly in that middle range. And I think that's like one of those problems where like everything that's in it is like been done in other things that are more successful and by and large better in a lot of ways, right? A lot of these, and I'm not saying this specifically about Dune. I'm not saying other things have done Dune better than Dune. I'm not saying that at all because I don't think it necessarily has. I think Dune's specific thing, because Dune's world's very I think Dune's world is more fascinating than any of the characters in it, and I think fundamentally that's why it doesn't appeal to me maybe quite as much as other science fiction, because most of the best science fiction I think also has great characters that worked for me. We've been reviewing Babylon 5, and there's this great mythology and there's all these things going on, but what makes it really work is that I really care about a big cast of characters who are in the middle of the show. And out in a big cast, one would do. Like really, that's all it takes is one to really root for. But I'll take more than one if they're going. That's just the because we just talked about an episode before we did this, which is why it's the first thing that came to mind. But there's other examples, right? There's other these big things where there's all these things going on. Like I need characters at the center of it that I really care, and it feels and you can tell this is based on a book. You can tell it comes from a book, and it's not that books don't have good characters, because many of them clearly do, but in the sense that it feels so rich with its mythology. And it's so dense in that sense that the characters, but compared to it, feel really like simple, or at least feel really derivative. And even though, technically speaking, I know that this came maybe before a lot of other science fiction characters, and therefore it's not its fault that it feels that way, but it does. So, yes, that's my analysis. I don't want to shit on it too much because I don't think it's a bad movie. I actually think there's a lot of good things about it, but
yeah.
But I'm not glowing with praise and ready to like bow down before the altar of Denis Villeneuve.
I mean, I'm very excited about the prospects of this just being a movie series, honestly, because I do love the big epic feel of it. It feels very Lord of the Rings, although Lord of the Rings had a lot of characters that, had a lot of different personalities and they were easy to latch on to. This one has, like, I think Duncan Idaho's pretty likable guy. I was a little worried when he was originally cast because I'm not like the biggest Jason Momoa fan, but like he is really likable in this film, and it's easy to see why Paul is just like, let me be around you all the time.
He's okay. I mean, I don't think you see enough of him to really get that likable.
I thought he was a scene stealer, honestly, but
I thought it was just being Jason Momoa. I don't know. I never got much from him.
Well, he had so much energy and excitement about being in a new place and about learning about new people, and he still has this real intensity about him that I recognize from Game of Thrones, and I think that was the right kind of balance, and like it brought a lot out of Paul also. When he saw him, we're like, okay, he's fun. It's nice to have. And yeah, I'm very excited about like even the opening of it like felt very 2001 when like there was a little bit of a monolith theme that you can hear when they were first going into space.
On the space stuff, I actually thought a lot of the shots in space reminded me of Alien. The way the way the ships or whatever were moving made me think of that classic. I guess it works for 2001 as well, but because they're more Alien in design, it made me think of Alien more. And maybe it was the music as well, because it was more like a hum kind of thing. It was more of a subtle thing.
Right. It was giving me like it was reminding me of other very big epic science fiction films. And so I'm so glad to have something like this, you know, in the theater. And I want more, obviously. I want part 2, and I want other books to be adapted if possible. But like, I'm so grateful to have something with this high of budget and taken so seriously and so lovingly that maybe that's why I'm singing so much of its praises, but like.
This higher budget may be why you might not get all the movies that Villeneuve wants to do.
Just please give me part 2. That's, I guess that's all I can ask for right now. But I mean, they gave it to him even after Blade Runner was, you know, not financially successful.
It's had the best opening weekend for Warner Brothers so far this year, which isn't necessarily saying much because it's been a weird year because obviously we're still in pandemic times. And
they put it on HBO at the same day.
Yeah. So honestly, how you judge success of movie opening weekends this year, I don't know, because they're so weird because they're split up between multiple things and like it's hard to judge, right? It's impossible. But I suspect you'll get part 2. I don't know if part 3 is in the bag. I think part 3's the like. I think how many people go back to see part 2 to see what it's like because they care about the conclusion. I think if part 2 doesn't do better than part 1, you probably won't get a part 3 because they'll probably expecting, because of the time this was released in and because of the weirdness of also having it on HBO Max, I think they will expect that part 2 should easily do better than part 1 when it's released in theaters by the time it comes out, which by the way will be at least like 2 or 3 years from now. And if it doesn't, then they're probably going to see that as well. Okay, we'll sort of like cut our losses here, we'll say we've broke even more or less and just kind of move on with our lives.
I was surprised this morning because I went to a very early show. I went and saw it at 11:40, which is really early for a film. Like usually you just get senior citizens and like very young children. And there really weren't that many of them there. This one like had full families and groups of friends and stuff going to see the film. And the chatter, like the scuttlebutt coming out of the movie is like everybody was really happy with it. I went to use the restroom and like this girl who's maybe like a little bit younger than me was with another girl, and they're like, I think that might be my top 10 like of all time just films, which I was really surprised about. Like I shouldn't be surprised, but I was just like, wow, people really like good movies. It's nice to hear. It's just like, it was just so big and beautiful and epic, and I'm like, yeah, I should be friends with these people.
The visuals are stunning. I ain't gonna complain about the visuals or the music.
I don't know. So the scuttlebutt seems to be good.
But that's the weird thing, though. You even said it's kind of like Lord of the Rings, and I love Lord of the Rings so much. It's why don't I love this?
Well, you are. I mean, I don't really know why you don't like Lord of the Rings, other than like just a general disdain for fantasy. But witches and vampires, they're fine. But
they're different. Horror fantasy is different.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, there's I don't know, like Lord of the Rings, it reminds me of Lord of the Rings in the scale of things, of like the long storytelling, the big world building, the journey of these characters that's going to take multiple movies to tell. And that's what I'm really excited for, like an event film that's not a Marvel movie.
Oh, you'd have to say that twice to me. I am like, I have not seen Shang-Chi yet. I am not going to see Eternals till it's at home. Which, by the way, I mean, it's not that low an RT score, but Eternals is like the lowest Marvel score in a while.
Oh, really?
People are freaking out about it because it's only at 72% at the time of recording.
It's a long film too.
That makes me not want to watch it.
I'm going opening night. Got my ticket already.
I don't care. I'm so sick of most of these Marvel movies at this point. I mean, I'll see them eventually when I can do them easily.
I'm still invested in this show, though, right? Like, it's been going on for 10 years. I'm going to watch each episode.
Yeah, I don't know. It was the same with because they're doing like a spin-off of WandaVision about Agatha, and I'm like, I don't need to watch that. Like, that's just this was a step too far.
But that's horror fantasy. You like that stuff.
Yeah, but I thought her character was kind of weak.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't like her that much.
Maybe they'll bring it out a bit more in the show.
Well, I liked her for a decent amount of the show, but when it got to the last chunk, when things were revealed, I wasn't as into it.
I will say the trailers for Eternal have not been good.
No.
It just looks a little dull.
I have to say, I'm having a really bad year for movies. I've seen like nearly 40 movies from 2021, and I don't have a top 10. Like, I've not seen anything that I would put in my top 10 yet that I would love.
I'm gonna take a quick peek while you talk about Dune and stuff.
I mean, I guess Dune would be there by default right now, but I don't know if I like it enough that it would be in my top 10. If I had like enough to pick from that I really liked.
Well, that's upsetting.
Yeah, and that kind of sucks. I'm having a kind of a miserable year for new movies.
Let me see. I think I'm doing all right with new movies.
And there's a few things I know I need to see. I need to see Pig.
Yeah.
Because I've heard good things about Pig.
Oh, Luca and Raya were really good. And I like the new James Bond. Suicide Squad was pretty fun.
Suicide Squad's probably my number one right now, but it's not. I mean, that's like, I don't mind that being in the top 10, but that should not be number one. Like if I go back to like 2019, look at my top 10, like Suicide Squad ain't making the top 5 easily. Yeah.
Is that why you don't like Dune? Is because there wasn't a big sky beam battle at the end of it?
Just shut up. You know I hate that. You know I'm so sick of that shit.
That's what I fully expect from Eternals also, is that I'll enjoy the first 2/3 a lot, and then the last third I'll be like, well, here's the Marvel.
Yeah. I mean, Black Widow was kind of flawed before that point, but that was the same thing where you get to that third act, it's like, oh, now it's just turned into a generic Marvel movie. If you were liking stuff from before this, it's just all went out the window now.
Mm-hmm. I like the movie though. Yeah, Dune's definitely number one so far on my list.
It's probably by default straight to number 2. I probably had a little bit more fun with the Suicide Squad, but
actually, my number one right now for 2021 is a short film with Taika Waititi in it called Save Ralph. I recommend everyone watch it.
I mean, given how that I don't even have a top 10 and it's October, I doubt we'll do top 10s for the year when the time comes. But if we do, short films don't count. If we do official ones.
I make my own rules.
I make rules. Okay. Yes. We've kind of diverged off. Do you know what I think it is? I think we spoke so much about the concepts of Dune in the last movie that I feel like we don't have much left to say about this one.
I mean, we don't have to go like through the film plot by plot.
Because the plot's not changed. The plot's still the same.
Well, there are some changes, and it ends when Paul meets the Fremen, basically.
Yes. Which is a good 2/3 into that first movie. So clearly the last third, which I mean, actually when we watched that, we said.
Which is the part that is like on, fast forward when you're watching it.
But this movie's 2.5 hours long. I think I could easily cut 20 minutes out of this to get it down to closer to 2 hours, and it'd have been a tighter film.
I wouldn't have wanted a 2-hour version. I want a 3-hour version. Give me the 4-hour version. I know it's out there.
Oh my god, no. No. I think I was into the majesty and the visuals for up until the place is attacked and you have all the big action stuff. Once we get out into the desert though, and we have this like thing where they have to meet the women first and like get their suit, because they don't just have suits on them this time like the David Lynch movie. They have to go to the women. Jason Momoa takes them there, and then he has to like sacrifice himself, and they have to get away in the ship. And the action scene with them in the ship with Chalamet flying the ship was fine. Like, it's a decent little action scene. And then they're like, creeping about in the sand, and they spend the night in a tent, I think, before that, and then Then eventually they sort of see signs that there's the Fremen nearby. Whereas in the David Lynch movie, as soon as they crash from the getting out of the city area of the planet, they immediately run into the Fremen. Right, it's almost right away.
Right.
So,
yeah. There's no like crossing the desert.
And honestly, most of that stuff, like, I don't necessarily feel like it needed to be there. Like, I get that it's in the book, but in the movie, I'm just like, I mean, I don't know if it added, like, once we got to, I mean, other than the vision that he has at one point, because it's during that section, I think, that he has the vision of the guy being friends with him. But other than
during that.
yeah. But other than that, like, most of the stuff that was there, you could have probably just cut, and it wouldn't have mattered that much.
Well, I mean, escaping and, you know, seeing characters go and sacrifice themselves were, you know, I guess sort of important. And the scene in the tent I really enjoyed with him and his mother.
But if you cut that, you just have him sacrifice himself at the palace earlier, like the David Lynch movie did. Just have him do it earlier. Easy.
Sure, but we get the great scene with the ecologist or whoever she was. I can't remember her name. Kine or something.
She's the Max von Sydow character in this one.
Yeah, she's Max von Sydow. I mean, we get her great sacrifice. We get like this more world building of like the humans came here originally to try to change the ecology of the planet in order to make it more, you know, habitable and hospitable. And they were making some huge strides in it, but then they found the spice, and all of a sudden nobody wanted it to change anymore. Now it must remain a desert, and we must harvest the spice. That was the only thing that mattered.
And they do mention at one point that there is water like deep underneath, right? They mentioned that once or twice.
Right. That was in that scene also, where we get this great visual of these abandoned like plants for studying just the system, the way this planet works and stuff like that. And yeah, and we get her great sacrifice scene also, where she's about to ride a worm.
I mean, that's less of a sacrifice and more just she gets stabbed in the back from behind. She's not really.
She tells them like how to get away, and they have the easy way out, and she takes the longer way.
But Jason Momoa actually sacrifices himself. He actually intentionally like goes in knowing he's going to die and like shuts the door and sort of smiles goodbye at Timothy, and is like,
yeah,
I'm going to go and live your life, Timothy.
He takes out like a dozen of them.
Right? Where she's just like thinking she's going to meet them later. She pulls out her hooks and she's like ready to go. It's like, okay, it's worm rain time,
I know, what
baby.
a tease, right?
And then she gets stabbed in the back, and that's her. It's her done. She's dead.
Yeah. And then she does her great prayer, because she's not native to the planet, but she's become like part of them. And I love like the religion that they have around the sandworms. Like their god is everything about their culture is surrounding the sandworm. Like the knives that they use are just the teeth of the different worms.
And they do have a lot of teeth. And we should mention the visual of the sandworms, because they obviously, you see kind of the mouth of it when it comes up to get it's the same scene that's in the first movie, which is the saving the few workers. They made more of a scene out of it this time. It's a bit more actiony, but you see the
Paul has more.
You see the sort of the rim of the mouth and the teeth, but you don't necessarily get a good look at the worm itself. And then you see another glimpse of it, because when the woman dies, she puts the thumper down. And like, you know, she kills all the guys that killed her by doing that.
She just starts stomping.
Yeah,
it's great.
But then we don't get a proper good look at it until that big shot where they're running to the Fremen, they're running to the rock, and it's just like Tremors, right? They're running for the rock because the big tremor, the big graboid's going to get them. And they get to the rock, and there's this big city where Chalamet just gets there just in time, so he turns around and it's just this big giant worm in the mouth looking at him.
I think it communicates with him. It starts to like thump back at him.
Yeah, and then there's like a thumper, like one of the Fremen like sets off a thumper nearby to make it distract and move away and whatever. So but it's a really great visual, that moment where you see it properly for the first time.
Yeah, the worms look awesome. I love the teeth. I really love the way that the world interacts around the worm. Like everything, the sand sort of turns to water. You see the rippling, you feel the danger. People are running, and then all of a sudden they start sinking. You know, it's it feels very dangerous and very, very cool. Yeah, I like it a lot. One other thing, I don't know if you want to keep talking about the worms or not, but another thing I want to talk about before before we finish. The thing that I really felt was like, what is going on is the Harkonnen scene with the I don't remember her name, but she's like the queen of the Bene Gesserits or whatever. She's with Baron and Piter and talking about like, get your pet out of here because I think your pet can understand what we're saying and we need silence. They're like, oh no, it's just our pet. Like, it doesn't understand you. And we see this spider thing and it's eating out of a bowl and it's giant. But when it goes like on a closer shot of it, it's got human hands. And so it's like, it's a human that's been turned into like a spider thing. And it's also like not intelligent anymore. So, and it made me think of the scene with the doctor who does betray the Atreides family for the Baron, because he says the Harkonnens have my wife and they've taken her apart. So are they doing like human experiments and stuff and creating these weird creatures for their own like enjoyment? It was I want to see more of the creatures that they've made. What else is behind the curtain? Anyway, that spider thing got my brain going.
You might see more next one.
Yeah. But I think it's like a human that's been turned into a spider. It's like a human centipede thing.
Whoa. Human centipede is a very different thing. That's multiple humans.
But this is just what they do. They just create creatures out of humans.
You gotta have a hobby when you're a bored Baron who, you can't eat all the time.
Yeah.
Eats a lot of the time.
Right. So, I mean, that's what I really liked about the Harkonnens in this one. I mean, yeah, they were gross, but like the thing that really intrigued me is like their experiments that they're doing on people.
I never got a sense that we had a character who was like the Sting, the one who's going
not in it.
Yeah, the one who's going to fight.
There's
Paul
no
at the
Fade
end.
Rautha. It's I thought maybe Bautista was, but
he's the nephew.
The Beast. Yeah, the nephew.
Yeah, he's the nephew character from the other movie. Yeah. I don't know. That's weird, but yeah, I think for me it boils down to great visuals, great sound, great music, great technical qualities, an interesting world and interesting themes that it's playing with. But the characters, now that this is just a straight, like, serious adaptation, Paul especially, but I think, it kind of, a little bit is true for the ensemble, is the characters are a little bit bland and dull for me. Which is a shame, because I want to love this, I really do. But I don't.
Okay.
I don't want to kill your mood and kill your buzz, because you're over the moon with it.
I was prepared for this.
I mean, on the upside, you know me well enough that you called my reaction like to a T.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you'd have been happy if I'd surprised you with a positive. But I mean, the opposite could have been true. I could have come in here and said, "Oh my god, this is just as bad as Halloween Kills," and that would have been a statement.
That would have been maybe a deal breaker for our podcast.
That'd have been over.
Like, maybe he doesn't know movies like I thought he did.
Harkonnen dies tonight. Harkonnen dies tonight. Oh god, that movie's so bad. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything else you?
I really wanted to talk about the human spider. That was it. You didn't have much to say though, so.
I mean, it was an okay design. I mean, I guess the biggest, most damning thing I can say is that the longer it went on, kind of the less like engrossed I was, and the less like for the first like hour, I think I was like really into it and just sort of like being in the world, the visuals, learning. I mean, not learning because I kind of knew a lot of it from the previous movie, but like just being engrossed in the spectacle of it all. But 2.5 hours is a long time, so the longer that goes on, if I, at a certain point I'm not starting to really be into the characters themselves, that's when you start to kind of wane a little bit. And I was kind of a little bit, a little bit long in the tooth for me in that last like 40 minutes or so, where I was like, I feel this could probably be trimmed down a little bit. And then you have that final scene, which I think the final scene is actively kind of bad, because it is very much like, they're walking on the sand, and they're carrying the body of the guy that Paul had to kill, and the Zendaya kind of turns around and just kind of says like, yeah, look at it. And he's like, yeah, the power of the desert, because he sees someone riding the worm off in the distance. Oh, desert power. It's like, yeah, desert power, and you will harness it. That is the prophecy. See you in part 2, directed by Denis Villeneuve.
I think it was more like this is only the beginning, and then
that's what it means, though.
Smile. Yeah,
that's what it means. But it was like a wink to the camera, almost, of like, see part 2. They may as well have done the at the end of Back to the Future, where it comes up saying to be continued with a theme like da 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 da.
Well, I mean, we know it's gonna happen because it's not called Dune; it's called Dune Part 1.
Do you know what? I would have. Well, yeah. I'm not critiquing that it is a part 1. I'm critiquing just how blatant this scene was at trying to give it like a come back for part 2 vibe, because they didn't have like a proper like cliffhanger ending to leave it on. So I would, I whatever score I'm going to give it, I would have given it like 2 extra points if the Back to the Future theme kicked in and it came up in the font saying to be continued. I can't take you
seriously.
I would have given it 2 extra points.
Well, I would have given it an extra point if, when we saw someone riding the sandworm, that there was an electric guitar, but I didn't hear an electric guitar, so.
That's true. You know what? As much as I think this score is very suited to the film and it works with it, I don't know if I like any of the music as much as I like that main guitar theme when he's riding the worm in the first movie.
That scene like is probably like top 10 of all time for any film. That was just such a good scene.
Yeah.
Especially when he has like the people behind him also, and they're all just riding the worm together. It was so good. It's so cheesy. Anyway.
Yeah, good luck next movie having like shots of Paul. Like, I mean, it's one thing seeing one person ride the worm off in the distance. It's going to be another thing having Paul up close and like him having to go up to the worm. And like,
I trust Denis Villeneuve to make it work, to make it epic, to make it fit the film. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ending is very slow. Like the movie is. I wouldn't say it's very like a very fast-paced movie, but most of the action happens in the middle, and then it's slow in the beginning and slow in the end. So, which is unusual for, how you tell stories in cinema. But because it is part of this epic story that's going to keep going, like, I definitely don't mind it. The ending of the film is that he kills Paul Atreides and he rises as the Muad'Dim. That's like his ending, is that those are the visions he was having with the bloody hand and the blade and stuff. And then someone even says in his dream, like, Paul has to die.
Yeah, I don't know if they made that. Did they actually call him that at the end, though, to like really sort of confirm that transition had happened?
I think it's just sort of implied because nobody takes him seriously as the prophecy. But then once he is able to do the thing, like, everyone just kind of looks at him differently. Maybe he is. Like, things are starting to add up here.
Obviously, the ending, the big character beat is him going through with this and like realizing these prophecies can be false and like being accepted,
or just manipulated,
and being accepted.
He can do it.
But being accepted into the Fremen is kind of your dramatic ending beat, and that's the best you can get, because I don't know if the movie actually, like, unless you've like read the book or have seen the other movie and know that transition is going to happen. I don't know if this movie makes it clear that there's actually kind of like a not another persona, but like a new title that he's going to take, and that's happened at the end of this movie. I don't think I got that from the ending of it, but maybe they'll make it clear at the start of the next one that now he's Muad'Dib. But I don't know if I got that on from this on its own.
Okay, I like all the little acting moments of like where he's acting like just, you know, a young royal kid or whatever. I want to say kid, but you know, he's supposed to be like 15 or something. But every now and then there will be a change in his character and somebody recognizes it and they go, oh crap, like, is he doing the thing that everyone says he's gonna do? Like, it just little things that happen throughout the entirety of the film where people have a sudden change if you're not supposed to be able to do that yet.
Oh, you mean like the Deadite voice that happens when he uses the voice?
Oh, I like the voice. Did you? I thought it was good. I mean, it's actually quite similar to the one in the Lynch film, where it's just like layers of people.
I had no problem with it necessarily. It was fine.
When he used it in the tent, like both times, it genuinely like scared me a bit.
I think the first time we hear it used properly, though, which is where it goes silent first, I thought was more effective. Like I almost wanted. I don't know, like I don't know, because there's a scene when the Bene Gesserit woman goes to see Harkonnen at one point, and they have that like sort of like sound bubble they put down, so it's private.
The spider scene.
Yeah. And I thought, like, do you know what? I actually think it's kind of interesting watching this play out in silence with subtitles, and just sort of like getting it in silence. And I'm not saying I wanted subtitles for the voice and just have it be silent, but the first time they did this thing where it went silent at first, and then the voice came kind of like really quickly and harshly after a moment of silence. And I felt that the rest of the movie, though, whenever it was used, it was a bit more just like, oh, there's just like a voice effect over the top, rather than having this sort of delay thing that they did the first time. I thought that was, it felt more unique the first time, I guess is what I'm saying, and then it was fine after that. But
I definitely noticed it like in the first scene when he's asking his mother to pass the water, and but the reason it's supposed to be silent like that, and then you just hear one layer of voice, which is supposed to be like the ancient Bene Gesserit women or something that he's able to harness their voices and their power. That's why it's always female voices that you hear. Except for, I guess, like before the Warner Brothers logo, there's like a line that's on a black screen of like male voices that seem to be layered up like that. It's an easy thing to forget because it happens like before the Warner Brothers logo even pops up. So I guess that is sort of a tease for the future.
That's all the Warner Brothers producers whispering in Villeneuve's ear.
We're gonna make so much money. Villeneuve is the spice. Yes. But I like that. So I guess because he only hears like one layer and it's delayed, she's not really able to obey the command saying like, you're not ready yet or whatever. But then, you know, I thought it did a good job of differentiating like the voices each time you hear it. So the second time he does it was when they're in trouble on the thopter. It's weird to say. The thopter. And he's trying to use it against a guy and it doesn't work. And you can tell because the voice doesn't come out correctly again versus when it does work. And then later on in the tent where it comes out in anger, it's very different also. And anyway, I liked it in the effect of the movie theater with the surround sound. It was, you know, bone chilling sometimes. It's good.
All right. What do you want to rate it?
Should we wrap it up? Yeah, okay.
Rate
it. All right. Well, obviously, I really like the movie. I saw it twice on my free time when I had it 2 days in a row. So I am very much looking forward to the next one. And this was a really great appetizer, and I can't wait for more. I am going to rate it pretty high. I love this director, and I love his vision. And I think I'm going to love this story, however it unfolds. So right now I'm giving it a 9, but I suspect it'll go up with more viewings and depending how the other movies play out.
Yeah, this is a tough one to rate, to be honest, for me, because I'm not in love with it. Like, I don't, I'm not like super engrossed in the characters, but there's a lot of obviously there's things that I do appreciate. There's a lot of things that I think are great in the movie.
Kitty cat's pretty great.
Yeah, can you hear him?
No.
No, okay, he's purring. The mic's just good at not picking up extra things. So,
Your mic's just too good.
Mike's just too good. So yeah, it's tough because I think by the end of the film, I felt just a little bit cold towards it because I just wasn't that invested in the characters and their journey, and I think also because the to be continued, it's a bit of a like I said right at the start of this was not designed to be split in two, so it's kind of just this awkward thing where it has to have a point where it goes, and this is the end of part one. Come back for part two.
I mean, it's split into 3 in the book.
Well, maybe they should have used the cliffhanger from the end of part one in the book.
Well, the end of part 1 is them in the tent together, and he reveals some secrets about Lady Jessica that are not revealed in the films, so I won't tell them now.
I don't think that would work as an ending to the movie either.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so either. I don't know where the better point to end it is. Maybe this is just one of those unfortunate things where there's no good answer to it if you're going to have to split it up into two. Because I think it would be too early to end it right after, like, you know, the big, because you could theoretically end it with them just getting away when they're, you know, tied up on the Thopter, and they were able to escape. Like, you could, because that's like right after all the explosions, it's right after all the attack. That feels like it could be the climax of a movie, but it's probably too early in the story to make that your end point. So yeah, it's a tough decision. I don't know where you put it, but that mixed with my kind of just, I don't know, like apathy towards a lot of the characters make this a tougher one to kind of digest. So I think I'm going to have to go 6.5.
I knew it. You son of a...
Wait, you knew 6.5? You knew that's where...
I bet he's going to give it a 6 or 6.5. That's what I was doing. That was my nose crunching. That's what that was.
Do you know what? The sad truth is this officially puts Villeneuve for me on more misses than hits.
I don't understand.
I don't...
He's so good.
I don't like
He's
a lot
such
of
an
his
exciting
characters.
filmmaker.
I want to love him because the film community at large loves him. Like, he basically has the same buzz that Nolan had when Nolan was in his like first
so
decade.
Much better than Nolan.
I disagree. I like Nolan way more than Villeneuve. Like,
Nolan just makes standard
except
movies.
Dunkirk. Except Dunkirk. Dunkirk.
Oh, that's like his best one.
No, that's easily his worst one. But hey, difference of opinions and all that. That's part of the fun of this. But I don't know. I've left. Like, there's a lot of things I objectively see in these movies that I think are good, and there's one or two of them that I do genuinely quite like. In fact, we're going to talk about one of them next week. But this is now between this, Blade Runner. Although Blade Runner's problems largely come from the previous film, and this film's problems, if they are indeed problems, which is up to you to decide if you know, my complaints, if that's just because of what the characters are in the book versus the movie. But could potentially the source materials problems, so I mean you could debate if that's Villeneuve's fault in either case, but I think between those two, I didn't really like Sicario.
Prisoners
I remember liking. I mean, I wasn't like, it wasn't my favorite of the year or anything, but I definitely like it more in those examples.
I think he has a couple of other films that I haven't seen. They might be like French films.
I saw Enemy, which was one of his earlier films. I think that was the same year he did Prisoners. And that was not bad. That was not bad. But I've never had quite... Funny enough, the one we're doing next week, Arrival, not to spoil my thoughts, but that's easily my favourite Villeneuve film. So I'm curious to see... I've only seen it once, so I'll be curious to see how I feel about that next week when I watch it again.
All right.
We'll see how that goes. But I don't know, something about his films leaves me feeling a bit cold. I just don't connect with these characters. And it's because... Okay. And it's enough of a trend now that I can definitely look at his films and go, no, this is something that he does. This is something that's not working for me. So, yeah, I'm sorry.
You don't need to apologize to me.
I feel like I have to. I feel like I've let you down. Like I'm disappointing you. So,
I just don't get it. That's all.
I wish.
It's all right. There's good news. When I was at the theater, I saw there's a trailer for a new Michael Bay movie, a new Roland Emmerich movie, so you'll be fine. And a new Batman. Yay.
Those first two that you said there.
Where's Batman in my Dune movie?
I don't know. What about me says I always want Batman? I hated the last version of Batman.
I'm just making fun of you.
I can tell. Yes. I like Villeneuve more than Michael Bay and more than Roland Emmerich. Okay? Did you need me to say it?
Yes.
No, admittedly, would I rather watch Universal Soldier again than a lot of Villeneuve's films? That's technically true. But just that one.
I've never seen that one.
We'll be doing it on the show at some point. It's sci-fi.
Maybe before the new Emmerich film comes out.
This is new
about the moon crashing into Earth.
Oh, of course, yes. How could I forget? Roland Emmerich films just come and go, and I don't even notice them. Like,
yeah,
it's like he did like a 10 million BC or something like that, and then he did like 2012, and
he didn't do Geostorm, right? That was
no.
an Emmerich adjacent film.
It just looked like one of his, yes, but
he probably produced it.
The only notable thing he's done, not because it was necessarily good, I have no idea if it was any good, but he did a movie about Shakespeare randomly, like in between all the disaster
Anonymous.
movies.
I've seen that one. And he did, there was a war movie that came out, right? Midway. He did Midway.
Oh, right, yes.
That was like 2 years ago.
I can see how Emmerich could make a war movie, though, and there still be an Emmerich movie.
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
Hey, Firefly. Yeah, don't worry.
He looked at the camera for a little bit.
Don't worry, I'm about to do the outro cat, and then you get food. That's what happens, okay?
Yeah, okay. All right. Let's end this.
Dune's alright, but not special.
I think you might have rated the David Lynch one higher.
I did! I give that a 7.
I thought there's no way he's going to rate it lower than the David Lynch one.
I gave it a 7. You're right. I think I had more fun with the David Lynch one.
Unbelievable.
My opinion might go up when I see the second part. Maybe when I've got the full story, I'll connect with things a bit more. But,
okay. All right. Well, everyone knows what we're doing next time.
That is true. You have to pose for the thumbnail, though. So, here we go. Can't do the worm riding pose again, though, because you did that for the last movie. And there was no worm riding really in this one, so it wouldn't even work. So 3, 2, 1, pause. What was that?
When they do the blade thing.
Ah.
Up and like this.
Okay.
I think I did it like that. We'll see. Make sure you put a worm tooth in my hand, though.
I'll probably not do that, and you might just look like a tit, but that's okay. So
hey, you asked for a pose.
That's part of the fun of the thumbnails. It's fine. So yes, please do like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. All of that helps a lot on YouTube. You can also support us financially over at Patreon.
That's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MilesPlusTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of The Ace. You can check out all your favorite and our favorite B movies. We tend to post those there. There's quite a bit of a catalog now. You can get Time Cop. That was a great one. The Trancers Saga. We did all 6 of those. We're doing the Tremor sequels right now, so if you enjoy Sandworms, check those out. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access to our reviews 1 day early, and you get to vote on what we watch sometimes.
And yeah, Tremor's another movie that I like more than Dune 2021. Oh, I need to thank the Patreon producers. That's something else I do at the end.
That's right.
So thank you very much to our Patreon producers of Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Boardnow, Al Tradesman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. They are all producers for the month, which is why the higher tiers on Patreon. So yes. But otherwise, that's pretty much us. That is the show. This has been a weird one. I feel like between already having done the other film, which has the same plot, at least up to a point, and just recently, and also the fact that it's, I don't know, this was a weird conversation. This wasn't structured like the normal reviews were.
No, sometimes we do that with new release movies though, just because we haven't had a lot of time to go over the plot. We only watched it once. Well, I watched it twice.
No, but I think in this case, I just wasn't interested in going through in the plot beat for beat because we already talked about this plot 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
new releases, we always kind of, I don't know, do a different format anyway.
I don't know, if you go check out the streams that me and Tim did for Halloween Kills, we went through that meticulously.
Yeah, I saw that it was 2.5 hours. I haven't watched the movie yet, so I didn't want to listen to it. I listened to the spoiler-free section though.
You should watch the movie.
I got Peacock for a month.
See the train wreck that it is, and then go back and hear us tear it to shreds, because I think it's worthwhile. So that's my plug for Screams After Midnight, is the Halloween Kills review, which is a hoot. If you want to hear me and Tim just be it, it's not like this one where I'm kind of I like certain things, but I'm not in love with it. We tore that thing to shreds because it was terrible. But there you go. Thank you very much once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching movies. And computer, add space.